Hi, my name is Maya, and if you asked anyone at Crestview High about me, they'd probably say something like, Maya who?
Or, oh, the quiet girl who sits in the back and draws in her notebook.
And they'd be right. I'm an expert at blending into the background, a total ghost in the hallways, but right now I'm dangling from a chandelier in the grand ballroom of the Sterling estate 30 feet above a marble floor, trying to disarm a tiny laser tripwire that is currently aimed at the head of the city's most famous tech billionaire, the guy I'm supposed to be protecting.
So yeah, normal isn't exactly in my vocabulary.
Before this whole thing blows up in my face, literally go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. You don't want to miss this. You're probably wondering how a 17-year-old girl who considers successfully microwaving popcorn an achievement ends up as a high-stakes bodyguard. The short answer is my mom. The long answer? Also my mom. She wasn't your typical mom. Instead of baking cookies, she taught me how to bake knockout gas pellets. Our family game nights weren't Monopoly. They were escape the handcuffs and identify the poisonous berry. She was one of the best private security agents in the world until she retired to give me a normal life. But her definition of normal was making sure I could neutralize a threat with a paperclip and a hair tie by the age of 10. I thought it was all just a series of really weird, overly competitive games. I didn't realize she was training me. That all changed 6 months ago. We were in the kitchen when she got a call. Her face went pale, a look I'd never seen before. It was from an old client, a man named Mr. Sterling. His son, Liam, was in danger. Liam was a 17-year-old genius, the heir to the Sterling tech empire, and apparently he had a target on his back. His father had received credible threats from a rival corporation, a shadowy group known only as Cypher. They wanted Sterling's latest prototype, a piece of tech so revolutionary it could change the world, and they were willing to go through his son to get it. The problem was, Liam refused to have a team of burly, obvious bodyguards following him around. He was starting at a new elite school, Crestview High, and wanted to at least pretend to be a regular teenager. That's where I came in. Mr. Sterling needed someone on the inside, someone who could blend in, someone Liam would never suspect. He needed a high school girl. My mom tried to say no, that she was out of the game. But Mr. Sterling named a price that could secure our family's future forever. And just like that, my summer plans of binge-watching shows and learning to bake bread were replaced with a mission. Enroll at Crestview, become Liam Sterling's shadow, and keep him alive without him ever knowing. My cover story was simple. I was the new scholarship kid, shy, artsy, and completely unremarkable. It wasn't exactly a stretch. On my first day, I made sure to trip while walking up the main steps, sending my books flying everywhere. It was a classic move. And it worked perfectly. A group of popular girls, led by a queen, B.I. immediately nicknamed Queen Tiffany, laughed out loud. Watch where you're going! Charity case! She sneered, flipping her perfect blonde hair. I just mumbled an apology and gathered my things, feeling their judgmental eyes on me. Perfect! I was officially invisible. Then I saw him. Liam Sterling. He wasn't what I expected. He wasn't surrounded by an entourage or acting like he owned the place. He was sitting alone under a tree, reading a book, looking completely lost in his own world. He had messy brown hair that fell into his eyes, and a thoughtful expression that made him seem older than he was. He was, to put it mildly, unfairly attractive. My mission objective was clear. Protect him. But my 17-year-old brain had a different, much more distracting objective. Do not stare at the cute billionaire you're supposed to be guarding. For the first few weeks, the job was surprisingly boring. My biggest challenge was staying awake in calculus while keeping one eye on Liam. He was a creature of habit, library after school, chess club on Tuesdays, and he always ate lunch at the same table, alone. The threats felt distant, almost imaginary. My daily routine consisted of acting clumsy, avoiding Tiffany's wrath, and silently observing Liam from a distance. He never noticed me. Not once. I was just part of the scenery. The most dangerous thing that happened was when I almost choked on a tater tot in the cafeteria because Tiffany made a joke at my expense. But then, things started to change. I started noticing small, weird things. A black van parked across the street from the school every day, always leaving the second Liam's car pulled away. A janitor who didn't seem to do any janitor work, but was always near Liam's classrooms. My mom's training kicked in, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. This was it. The calm before the storm. The feeling was confirmed when I got a coded text from my mom. The weather is changing. Expect rain. In our language, that meant Cypher was making a move. My first real test came during a school field trip to the Sterling Industries headquarters. It was supposed to be a showcase of Liam's future empire. For me, it was a tactical nightmare. Hundreds of students, dozens of exits, and a target who had no idea he was a target. I stayed close, pretending to be sketching the architecture in my notebook, while I was actually mapping out security vulnerabilities. Liam was giving a presentation on a new AI when I saw him, the janitor from school. He was dressed as a technician, standing near a restricted access panel. My heart hammered against my ribs. He wasn't looking at Liam. He was looking at the prototype on display in a glass case right behind him. I had to create a diversion, and fast. I looked around frantically, and my eyes landed on Queen Tiffany, who was busy taking selfies. An idea, a terrible, risky idea, popped into my head. I accidentally stumbled, knocking my water bottle right onto her pristine white designer handbag. The shriek she let out was legendary. It echoed through the entire hall. Every head, including the fake technicians, snapped in her direction. In that split second of distraction, I moved. I darted past the crowd, snatched a fire extinguisher off the wall, and, with a quick prayer that this wouldn't get me expelled, I pulled the pin. A thick cloud of white foam erupted from the extinguisher, covering everything in a 5-foot radius, including the priceless prototype and the fake technician's very surprised face. An alarm blared overhead, and for a split second, everyone was frozen in shock. Then chaos took over. People started screaming, security guards were running towards the commotion, and Tiffany was still letting out a sound somewhere between a wail and a pterodactyl screech over her soaked handbag. It was the perfect storm. Under the cover of the mayhem, I slipped on the slick floor, pinwheeling my arms wildly and crashing directly into the technician's legs. He went down hard, his head hitting the marble with a satisfying thud. By the time security reached him, he was a dazed, foam-covered mess. My work here was done. I just lay on the floor, groaning pathetically, to complete my performance as the world's clumsiest teenager. I was sure I was going to be expelled, sued, or possibly both. But as the security team was dragging the now handcuffed technician away, a pair of expensive-looking leather shoes stopped right beside my head. I looked up into the concerned face of Liam Sterling. He was holding out a hand to help me up. That was quite an entrance, he said, a small smile playing on his lips. Are you okay? I took his hand, my heart doing a triple jump that had nothing to do with adrenaline. Oh my God, I am so sorry, I wailed, putting every ounce of fake panic I had into my voice. I saw a spider on the fire extinguisher. Was huge. Like, hair legs and a million eyes huge on I just freaked out. And then I slipped on the floor and I'm going to be grounded for eternity. Liam actually laughed. It was a nice sound. I think you might have just accidentally stopped a corporate spy. So I'm pretty sure we can let the spider incident slide. My father is actually impressed. He gestured over to his dad,
Who gave me a subtle, almost imperceptible nod from across the room.
It was the signal. Mission accomplished. Still, Liam continued, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Maybe stay away from heavy machinery for the rest of the day. That was the first time he'd ever spoken to me, and all I could think was that my cover of being a total disaster was working even better than I'd planned. That incident, however, put me squarely on Liam's radar. He wasn't just the guy I was protecting anymore. He was the guy who'd sometimes give me a small, shy smile in the hallway. He even defended me when Tiffany and her crew tried to mock me for the foam fiasco, as they'd started calling it. "Leave her alone, Tiffany," he'd said, his voice quiet but firm. "She probably prevented millions of dollars in damages. Can you say the same?" Tiffany had just huffed and stormed off, leaving me completely stunned. A part of me knew this was good for the mission. The closer I was, the better I could protect him. But another, much louder part of me was just thrilled that the cute billionaire knew I existed. My mom's next text was less celebratory. "Rain is turning into a thunderstorm. They know you're involved." Cypher wasn't backing down. They had lost an operative and a shot at the prototype, which meant they were angry. Their next move would be more direct and more dangerous. The target was no longer just the tech. It was Liam himself. My mission parameters changed instantly. I couldn't just be a shadow anymore. I had to be a friend. I needed a reason to be around him, to stick to him like glue. The opportunity came, unexpectedly, in chemistry class. Our teacher, Mr. Harrison, a man who seemed to take sadistic pleasure in our suffering, announced our new semester-long project. We had to work in pairs. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I was a lone wolf, always. I didn't do partners. "And your partners will be ... Mr. Harrison began, reading from a list. I held my breath, praying for anyone who wasn't Tiffany. Maya Rosewood and Liam Sterling. I nearly fell out of my chair. Liam turned to look at me from across the room, a look of polite surprise on his face. Tiffany, on the other hand, looked like she was about to launch a full-scale investigation into Mr. Harrison's teaching credentials. It was a ridiculously lucky break. So lucky, in fact, that I had a sneaking suspicion my mom or Mr. Sterling had pulled some strings. Our first project meeting was at a quiet cafe downtown. It was Liam's suggestion. "Less chance of a random fire extinguisher incident here," he'd joked. I tried to focus on our chemistry presentation. I really did. But it was hard when he was sitting right across from me, occasionally running a hand through his hair when he was thinking. My job was to watch for threats, but I kept getting distracted by the way the afternoon light caught the gold flecks in his eyes. He was surprisingly easy to talk to. He hated the pressure of being a Sterling and confessed he'd rather be an astrophysicist, studying stars instead of stock prices. It made him seem normal, and that was dangerous. The threat came when I least expected it. We were deep in a debate about ionic bonds. When the waiter brought Liam a fresh cup of coffee, as he set it down, his sleeve brushed against the cup, and my eyes caught a flicker of something, a fine white powder, dissolving almost instantly. My blood ran cold. The waiter wasn't the one from before. This was a new guy, and he was already disappearing into the kitchen. Liam reached for the cup, oblivious. "So, if the electrons are transferred, ... double quotes, he was saying. I couldn't shout. I couldn't make a scene. I did the only thing I was an expert at. I panicked. "Oh my God, is that a bee?" I shrieked, pointing wildly behind him. As he turned, I tripped over my own feet, lunging forward and sending the poisoned coffee splashing all over the floor, narrowly missing his $1,000 laptop. Liam stared at the mess, then back at me, a strange expression on his face. "A B in November. Maya, are you feeling okay?"
I was breathing heavily, my heart pounding from the close call.
"I'm so sorry. I have a really bad phobia. Bees, wasps, anything that buzzes," I stammered, trying to make my lie believable. He just shook his head, a ghost of a smile on his face. "First, spiders. Now, bees. You've got a lot of enemies in the insect world." He helped me up, his hand warm on my arm. But this time, his gaze was different. It was more intense, more calculating. He wasn't just looking at me with amusement anymore. He was studying me. The near misses kept happening, and with each one, my clumsiness became more and more life-saving. A heavy textbook accidentally got knocked off a high shelf in the library by my flailing backpack, landing exactly where Liam's head had been seconds before. I slipped on a wet patch in the hallway, pushing him out of the way of a speeding floor-polishing machine that had mysteriously lost control. To everyone else, I was a walk-in, talkin' hazard. A joke. But to Liam, I was starting to become a puzzle. He started watching me as closely as I was watching him. He'd noticed the way my eyes scanned a room when we entered. The way I always positioned myself between him and a crowd. The final straw came a week later. We were leaving school, walking towards his car, when I saw the glint of a scope from a rooftop across the street. A sniper. There was no time for a diversion, no time for an accident. I just acted. I grabbed the front of his jacket, yelled, "Your shoelace is untied!" and yanked him down behind a parked car. A split second later, the sound of a silent shot whizzed through the air where his head had been, shattering the window of the car behind us. We both lay on the ground, hearts pounding. I had just saved his life, and there was no way to explain this one away with a fake bug phobia. Liam pushed himself up, his face pale but his eyes sharp and clear. He looked down at me, not with fear or confusion, but with an unnerving sense of certainty. "Your shoelaces are tied, Maya," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "You're not clumsy at all, are you?" My mind raced, cycling through 100 different lies, 100 different clumsy excuses. But looking into his eyes, steady and serious, I knew none of them would work. The game was up. I let out a long, slow breath, the air leaving my lungs in a puff of defeat. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm not clumsy." Liam didn't look triumphant or angry. He just looked validated, as if a complex equation had finally clicked into place. He stood up, brushing the dirt from his pants, and offered me his hand again. This time, I took it without hesitation. "The coffee at the cafe," he said. More a statement than a question. "The textbook in the library. The fire extinguisher. That was all you." I just nodded, my throat suddenly too tight to speak. We stood there for a moment in the deafening silence of the empty street. The shattered car window a testament to how close he'd just come to death. "My father hired you, didn't he?" he asked. I finally found my voice. "He knew you wouldn't accept a normal security team. He needed someone on the inside. Someone you wouldn't suspect." Liam stared at me. Really stared at me. For the first time. It felt like he was seeing past the shy, awkward girl I pretended to be, and getting a glimpse of the real me. "So, the whole tripping over your own feet thing. That's an act." A small smile touched my lips. "I'm a trained professional. Falling downstairs is one of my specialties." For a second, he looked like he might laugh, but the gravity of the situation settled back in. "They tried to kill me." The words hung in the air between us, cold and heavy.
"Yes," I said softly. "They've been trying for weeks. This was just their most direct attempt." Instead of panicking, a look of steely resolve hardened his features. He was a Sterling, after all.
"Right," he said, his mind clearly already working, processing the new data. "This changes things. They're not just after my father's tech anymore. This is personal, and I'm not going to be a sitting duck." He looked at me, a new kind of respect in his eyes. "You're my bodyguard. But from now on, I'm your partner. You have the field skills, I have the tech. We're going to take Cypher down ourselves." And just like that, our entire dynamic shifted. I was no longer just his secret protector. I was his co-conspirator. The next few days were a blur of clandestine meetings and hushed strategy sessions. We'd meet in the library, pretending to work on our chemistry project. But Liam's laptop would be running complex decryption algorithms, trying to trace the source of the threats. My notebook, which once held sketches, was now filled with tactical diagrams and profiles of potential Cypher operatives. It was terrifying, but it was also exhilarating. For the first time, I wasn't alone in this. He transformed his bedroom into a command center. It was a surreal experience, sitting on his perfectly made bed, surrounded by monitors, displaying lines of code, while he worked his magic. "The bullet from the sniper rifle," he muttered one night, his eyes glued to a screen. "It's custom-made. Almost untraceable, but they made a mistake." The metal alloy has a unique isotopic signature, used by only 3 manufacturers in the world. He was brilliant, and I found myself getting lost just watching him work.
"And you," he said, turning to me suddenly. "How did you even see the sniper's scope?" The glint was tiny. I shrugged.
My mom made me play this game as a kid called Spot the Glint. She'd hide a piece of foil 100 yards away, and I'd have to find it with binoculars. I hated it. Turns out, it was useful. He smiled, and in the soft glow of the monitors, the space between us felt charged. The mission, the danger, it all faded away for a second. There was just him and me. "You're full of surprises." "Maya Rosewood," he whispered, leaning in just a fraction of an inch. My breath hitched. This wasn't part of the mission. This wasn't in any of my mom's training manuals. But just as his lips were about to meet mine, a sharp beep from his computer shattered the moment. "I've got it," he said, pulling back, his focus instantly shifting.
"I found a digital ghost."
A heavily encrypted signal piggybacking on the school's Wi-Fi network. "It's been active for months." He typed furiously, and a map of Crestview High appeared on the screen. "The signal is coming from inside the school. Cypher has a mole." The air went frigid. A mole. It could be anyone. A teacher? A student? One of the staff? It could even be Tiffany. Suddenly, every friendly face at school seemed like a mask. Every conversation a potential threat. The danger wasn't just outside the gates anymore. We were in a snake pit. "How do we find them?" I asked, my voice tense. Liam's eyes scanned his screen. "We can't. The signal is routed through too many proxies. It's impossible to pinpoint the exact source. We need to draw them out." His gaze met mine. "And I know just the place to do it." The annual Crestview Autumn Ball was the biggest social event of the year. A night of fancy dresses, bad punch, and cringy slow dances. It was also the perfect trap. "Everyone will be there," Liam explained, his plan already forming. "The mole will feel safe in the crowd. We'll leak a piece of false information, something juicy about a new security protocol for the prototype, and see who takes the bait." It was a solid plan, but there was one glaring flaw. "And how do we do that without looking suspicious?" I asked. "It's not like we hang out. People will get weird if we're suddenly seen whispering in corners." Liam smirked, a look of pure mischief in his eyes. "That's the easy part. We go together?" I blinked. "As in a date?" He nodded. "It's the perfect cover. The rich guy finally asks out the shy, nerdy girl he's been working on a project with. It's a tale as old as time. No one will suspect a thing." I knew he was right, but the thought of it made my stomach do a nervous flutter kick. This was getting complicated. My job was to protect his life, not navigate a fake dating scenario that felt dangerously close to my real feelings. As I got ready for the ball, I looked at my reflection. My mom had insisted on sending over a dresser's simple but elegant navy blue gown that made me look not like a clumsy scholarship kid. For the first time, I saw a version of myself that wasn't playing a part. I just saw Maya. When Liam arrived to pick me up, he looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, and for a moment, we both just stood there, speechless. "You look?" He started, then stopped. "Wow." I felt a blush creep up my neck. "You don't look so bad yourself, Sterling." Going to a school dance with Liam Sterling was a dream come true for the girl I was pretending to be. But for the real me, it felt like walking into the lion's den. And standing there, looking at him, I wasn't sure which part scared me more. Walking into the Crestview Autumn Ball on Liam Sterling's arm was like stepping into another dimension. The gymnasium had been transformed into a glittering wonderland of fairy lights and silver streamers. A live band was playing a soft, jazzy tune, and the air was thick with the scent of cheap perfume and teenage awkwardness. It was a world I had only ever observed from the shadows.
Whispers followed us like a ripple in a pond.
Is that Maya Rosewood? What is she wearing? No way is she with Liam Sterling. I saw Tiffany standing with her clique near the punch bowl, her jaw practically on the floor. She looked me up and down, her eyes filled with a mixture of shock and pure venom. For a second, I felt the old instinct to shrink back, to become invisible. But then Liam squeezed my hand gently. A silent message of reassurance, and I stood a little taller. Time to set the bait, he murmured, his voice low enough for only me to hear. He guided me towards a group that included the school's biggest gossip, a boy named Chad who ran an unofficial school news blog. Liam smiled charmingly. Hey guys, great party. Right. Chad, clearly starstruck, could only nod. My dad was just telling me about the new security for the prototype, Liam said, his tone casual, as if he were discussing the weather. It's pretty wild. They've tied the vault's biometric scanner directly to my vitals. It needs a live, steady heartbeat to open. Mine. So, unless I'm literally standing there, calm and willing, that vault is a paperweight. The information hung in the air, shiny and tempting. Chad's eyes lit up. I could practically see him typing out the blog post in his head. The bait was set. Now, we just had to wait and see what kind of shark came swimming. As we moved away, I scanned the crowd, my senses on high alert. Every student, every teacher, was a potential suspect. It was exhausting! You need to relax, Liam said, sensing my tension.
You're so stiff, you look like you're about to defuse a bomb.
In a way, I am, I retorted. He just smiled.
Come on, part of the cover is acting like we're actually on a date. And on a date, people dance. Before I could protest, the band shifted to a slow song, and he was leading me to the center of the floor. He placed one hand on my waist and took my other in his.
I rested my free hand on his shoulder, my heart performing a frantic drum solo against my ribs. See, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear.
Not so bad. No snipers. No poison. I looked up at him, and in the soft, twinkling lights, the line between the mission and reality completely dissolved. We were no longer Bodyguard and client. We were just Maya and Liam, swaying to a cheesy love song in a high school gym. I'm sorry this is your life, Liam, I found myself saying, the words coming out before I could stop them. All the danger, the pressure. It's not fair. He looked down at me, his expression softening. It's gotten a lot more interesting since you fell into it, he said, literally. We both smiled. And then, the space between us disappeared. He leaned down and his lips met mine. It was a soft, hesitant kiss, but it sent a jolt through my entire body that had nothing to do with danger. It was real. For that one perfect moment, I wasn't a bodyguard. I was just a girl kissing the boy she was falling for. But the moment, like all perfect things, was fragile. As we pulled apart, both of us slightly dazed, I saw movement over Liam's shoulder. It was Sarah, a quiet girl from the chess club, the last person I would have ever suspected. She was approaching us, a frantic, wide-eyed look on her face. Liam, oh my God! I'm so glad I found you, she said, her voice breathy and panicked. My phone just crashed, and it has my entire chemistry presentation on it. You're a tech genius, right? Can you please just take a look? My internal alarms went off. Her story was plausible, but her eyes kept darting towards Liam's chest, right where his heart was. She was trying to get him alone, to get close enough to... What? Sure. Sarah, let me see, Liam said, ever the gentleman. But I stepped between them, my body moving on instinct. I'm so sorry, Sarah, but we were just about to get some punch, I said, my voice sweet but firm. I put a protective hand on Liam's arm. Sarah's friendly facade twitched. A flash of pure frustration crossed her face before she masked it again. "Oh, of course," she said, her voice a little too high. "It's just that it's really urgent." She reached into her oversized clutch purse, supposedly to get her phone. But I didn't see a phone. I saw the metallic glint of a small, needle-like object.
A tranquilizer dart injector.
She was going to sedate him and drag him out of there. There was no more time for subtlety. As she brought her hand out of the purse, I acted. I grabbed her wrist, twisted it hard, and used my other hand to apply a pressure point on her neck. Her eyes widened in shock and pain. The injector clattered to the floor. "Drop it," I said, my voice low and cold. All traces of the shy, clumsy girl gone. Sarah let out a gasp, and the entire dance floor went silent. Everyone was staring. The music stopped. Tiffany's jaw was, once again, on the floor. But this time, it was with a look of pure, unadulterated shock. I kicked the injector away and pushed Sarah to her knees, holding her in a secure restraint. My cover wasn't just blown, it was annihilated. I stood over the subdued cipher mole,
My heart pounding.
with Liam and the entire student body of Crestview High watching me in stunned silence. So much for blending in! The silence in the gymnasium was broken by the sound of a dozen security guards storming the floor, their movements swift and professional. They surrounded Sarah, who was now sobbing, her tough spy exterior having crumbled into that of a scared teenager. Liam's father, Mr. Sterling, appeared at the entrance, his face a mask of cold fury, followed by my mom, who looked less like a retired agent and more like a predator who had just spotted her prey. Chaos erupted. Students were being ushered out, their faces a mixture of fear and frenzied excitement. They were staring at me, not with pity or scorn, but with a new kind of awe.
I was no longer Maya, the clumsy ghost.
I was Maya, the secret agent. I had a feeling my days of blending in were officially over. Liam pulled me away from the center of the gym into the relative quiet of an empty hallway. He just stared at me, his mind clearly trying to reboot after a system-wide crash. "So," he finally said, his voice a little shaky. "Bodyguard." I gave him a weak smile. "It's on my college applications and everything." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd come to realize meant he was completely overwhelmed. "So, all of it. It was a lie. The shyness, the clumsiness, the spider phobia."
I shook my head.
"Not everything," I said.
My voice softer now. The part where I think your obsession with dead astronomers is kind of nerdy, but also incredibly cool. That was real.
The part where my heart does this stupid backflip thing whenever you smile. Also very, very real. His eyes searched mine, looking for the truth. The kiss. Maya. Was that part of the mission, too? My heart ached at the question. "No, Liam," I whispered, stepping closer. "That was the one part of the night that had nothing to do with the mission. That was just for me." A wave of relief washed over his face, and he closed the distance between us, framing my face with his hands. "Good," he murmured, "because the mission is about to get a whole lot more complicated." Before I could ask what he meant, my mom and his dad rounded the corner. "Maya," my mom said, her professional tone back in full force. "We have the mole. It's time to find out who she's working for."
Sarah broke faster than a cheap plastic toy.
Faced with the combined intimidating presence of my mom and Mr. Sterling, she spilled everything. The head of Cypher wasn't some shadowy international villain. It was Alistair Vance, the CEO of Vance Dynamics, Sterling Industries' biggest and most bitter rival. He was obsessed with beating the Sterlings, and he was willing to kidnap and kill their son to do it. Liam, using the data from Sarah's confiscated devices, worked his tech magic.
Within an hour, he had bypassed layers of encryption
And found Vance's entire operation plan.
Including the location of his secret headquarters. There was no need for a dramatic final showdown. Armed with Liam's intel, a federal team raided Vance's headquarters that very night, arresting him and his entire inner circle. Just like that, the threat was gone. The mission was over. A few days later, I was packing my things from my small apartment, ready to go back to my normal life. Whatever that was now.
Mr. Sterling had offered me a permanent position on his security team with a salary that made my eyes water, but I turned it down.
I was done with the secret agent life, at least for now. There was a knock on my door. It was Liam. He was holding a small, potted plant. A cactus! I figured you'd appreciate something that is a little prickly on the outside but is actually really resilient, he said with a smile. I took it from him, our fingers brushing.
So, what now? I asked.
Your secret's out. My secret's out! What happens next? Life at Crestview High was different. The whispers hadn't stopped, but their tone had changed. I was now a school legend, the secret agent girl. People gave me a wide berth in the hallways, partly out of respect, partly out of fear that I might disarm them with a lunch tray. Tiffany and her clique wouldn't even make eye contact with me anymore. I wasn't invisible, but I wasn't one of them either. And I was perfectly okay with that. I didn't need their approval. I had found something better. What happens now? Liam said, stepping into my apartment, is that I'm officially hiring you for a new mission. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, yeah. And what's that? He grinned, the expression reaching his eyes and making them sparkle. The mission, should you choose to accept it, is to be my girlfriend. No cover, no secrets. The pay is terrible. It involves sharing my fries and listening to my theories about multi-dimensional space. But the benefits are pretty great. He leaned in and kissed me. A real, unhurried kiss, filled with all the things we hadn't been able to say. Everyone at Crestview High thought I was a normal girl, and for a while, I guess I wanted to be. I was so focused on playing a part that I forgot who I actually was. But it turns out, being a secret bodyguard is a lot less complicated than navigating high school crushes. And as for being normal, I've learned it's ridiculously overrated, especially when you're brilliant. Billionaire boyfriend still needs you to open stubborn pickle jars and save him from the occasional rogue bee.